So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a checklist for your students so that you can provide them with step-by-step instructions that they can check off as they work towards the completion of an assignment or activity. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that our editing is on, and you'll know because you'll be able to see add an activity or resource. If you can't see that, you want to scroll up to the top and turn your editing on. So we're going to add an activity or resource. We're going to choose checklist. And this is the first step. There's two steps in creating the checklist. So here I'm just going to call this checklist practice number 1. And if you wanted to put any additional information in there, then you could do that. In the settings, you can change things so that perhaps you want the students to be able to add some extra steps to their checklist. I'm going to leave that as no. I don't want them to be able to edit the checklist at this point. I'm going to say that the student and the teacher can go ahead and do updates to the checklist. That would be your own personal preference. I'm going to leave the commenting on. I'm not going to have it linked to a calendar or anything. I am not going to want an email when the checklist is complete at this point. If you want the student to be able to mark the entire checklist as being done, you can use the activity completion where students can mark the activity as completed. And you might want to add some conditions to that if you wanted. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click Save and Display. And this is going to take us to our second step. So the second step is where we're going to put in the actual things, the steps that we want the kids to complete. This is, I like to think of this kind of similar to what you would have up on the whiteboard in your classroom. Today we're going to work our way through these 4 or 5 different steps to get to our end goal. So for example, your first step might be that you want them to read page 130 to 132 in your textbook, for example. And then you just click Add. And then perhaps you want them to watch the video posted in Moodle. Or maybe you want to put the name of the video that you want them to watch. I think you can link it in as well. And then maybe you want them to write down 5 things you learned from reading that information in the textbook and watching the video. We click Add, and now you want them to complete the assignment, and maybe put the name of the assignment in there and click Add. And then maybe you just want to give them a little reminder to turn in your assignment so that it's showing that it's been turned in and complete. If you were wanting to create a checklist just for a specific group of students, then you could go ahead and you could play with this grouping feature, which you can create groups in the participants section over here, and then you could make this checklist only visible to certain students if you wanted. Now we don't need to save this. What we're able to do is just go back and see that in fact the checklist has been created. If you want to edit the name of the checklist, you can do that here. If you want to edit the checklist itself, you can go back in there. If you wanted to play around with the settings, you could do that. And then you could edit the actual things that are listed on your checklist by clicking Edit Checklist. If you wanted to add more things, you could do that. And if you want to see how your students are doing in relation to all of the steps, you can see that none of these students that are listed in this class have completed any of these things yet. I can show you what that looks like from student view. So if I switch my role to being a student, perhaps I want to say, okay, I've done these first 3 things, okay, and now that's as a student. Now I'm going to go back to my normal role, which is the teacher, and I'm going to click on View Progress, and you can actually see here now 3 things have been checked off the list. once I'm done, I could also click mark as done. And that's because of using the activity feature that activity completion feature that I had showed you before, which was here. If I click edit next to the practice one, down here, I had activity completion as students can manually mark the activity as completed. Now, one thing to note, I don't have any conditions attached to this. And so, even though I've only checked off 3 things, I can still mark it as done. So that's why having the condition set would be handy. And if you don't want to play around with that, then you can just turn that feature off altogether and just use the overall progress bars that you've got here.